Hey everybody, Tristan back with another video, and in this video we're taking a look at the Rolex Pepsi with Jubilee bracelet. Model number is 126710BLRO. That's quite a mouthful for model numbers, but it is generally known as the Pepsi GMT-Master 2, and the Pepsi refers to the color of the bezel. As of the current Rolexes that are available today, I think this one is literally like the most classic Rolex that you can get, and definitely probably one of the best Rolexes that you can get. I mean, when you think Rolex, this is pretty much the watch that a lot of people think about or think of, and it is just so classic. Rolex has really done a great job with this watch. I'm not going to review all of the functions and features on this watch because there are just a ton of other YouTube videos out there on that. But I did just want to kind of do a video on this watch because I did recently get it. A kind of an interesting story about me obtaining this watch. As some of you who have been following my channel for a while know that I have reviewed in the past vintage Rolex, a Rolex 5513, and I'll try to post a link up here on the top right for that. So I ended up selling that watch, the vintage 5513. And just because I wasn't wearing it that much, it was just sort of just staying in my safe and just not being worn. And so I decided to sell that watch, and I was able to sell it for more than double what I paid for it just 6 years ago. So in that respect, Rolex has been really quite a good investment in that watch I was able to sell for double what I paid for it, again, just 6 years ago. And then I was able to get this watch. And then the other reason I got this watch, and I also recently got the Milgauss as well, which I did a 60-second, kind of showcase video on that a few weeks ago. I'll post that on the right as well. But one of the reasons why I have bought these two modern Rolex watches, aside from the fact that I just really wanted them, is that savings interest rates are really low right now. They're under 1%. So I figured I'd take some of my savings and put it towards watches, and that might even be a better investment as they increase over time than actual savings interest rates. Now, if savings interest rates were higher, 2-3% or higher, I would probably think twice about putting savings into, high-end watches like this. Anyway, I will put this on my wrist so you can see what it looks like on the wrist, but I really like the Jubilee bracelet. It's just really awesome. And this is a 40mm watch, so it's not too bulky. And I actually like it even better than like the Daytona. I just think it's just a really awesome watch. And this also has an easy adjustment on the clasp as well, to where you can actually adjust this by 5mm so that like during the day as your wrist swells or if it's really hot, you can actually loosen it up so that's really comfortable. Whether it's cold outside or whether it's hot outside, you can just do that in 2 seconds, which is really nice. So that's something that I really appreciate. Now, this watch originally was like a pilot's watch. It was originally developed in conjunction with Pan Am, the airline, for pilots, because it can keep track of different time zones. And this particular watch can actually keep track of 3 different time zones once you learn how to do it. Using the combination of the bezel, the GMT hand, which is the red hand right there, as well as the hour hand. And another thing that's great about this watch is when you want to set the time, or if you travel, you can easily set the hour without messing up the minutes or seconds at all. You can just move the hour, forwards or backwards in hour increments really very easily. Now, also in terms of the bezel color, they've actually had a couple of iterations. This is the current iteration, and let me just go ahead and put this on my wrist so you can also see it on the wrist as I'm talking here. So this is what it looks like on the wrist. And talking about the bezel color, they've had a couple of iterations of the bezel color. When this watch was first introduced in 2018, the color on the bezel was more, I would say, a little bit bright. And some said the blue was kind of purplish and the red was kind of pinkish, which is something that I didn't really like. So this is the current iteration of the bezel. And I don't know if it comes through in this video, but the bezel is kind of a navy blue and really nice deep red. So it's not too bright in terms of the Pepsi colors. And also I like the Cerachrome bezel, which is a ceramic bezel, much better than prior versions of the GMT, which was an aluminum bezel. The aluminum bezel really did look kind of like a Pepsi can or something like that. It did look very aluminum and kind of bright. And this is just more understated. And this version reminds me of the original Bakelite bezel of the very original GMT that came out in the 60s. So I think it's just really classy and classic. Now granted, unlike vintage GMT Rolexes, this bezel is not going to fade or anything like that, because it's apparently supposed to be, you know, fade free. But that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I just think technically the modern Rolexes are, I mean, technically it's just a lot better of a bezel. It won't scratch or fade or anything like that, because it is ceramic. So yeah, in terms of all of the current modern Rolexes that you can get today, this one is definitely, you know, the most classic. Philippe Dufour, the extremely high-end watchmaker from Switzerland, actually has this watch as his everyday watch. And then I've also seen pictures of other celebrities with this watch as well, such as Sylvester Stallone and others. It is just an extremely classic Rolex and just really awesome. The other thing is the movement on this has been improved from prior versions as well. They've now have, I believe the movement number is 3285, and the new movements now Rolex is moving towards have a 70-hour power reserve, whereas the old ones I believe had a 40-hour power reserve. So that means that if you put this down on Friday night, on Monday morning, it will still be running and you won't have to manually wind it or anything like that. So that is a huge plus for the modern you know, current Rolexes that they are releasing. Now I just want to say a little bit about modern Rolexes versus vintage Rolexes. I like them both, but in terms of technically, the modern ones certainly are better. I mean, in every respect, in fit and finish, in materials, in the movement, in reliability, in the scratch resistance, you know, in just performance. The modern is certainly better. You know, vintage Rolexes are certainly cool, but they can be a bit hit and miss in terms of what you are getting. You know, you don't always know exactly what you're getting. There could be a lot of stretch in the bracelets, which can be a real pain in the butt, you know, when you receive that, you know, in a vintage watch. And a lot of times you just don't know what they've been through. So, you know, I like vintage watches quite a bit, but lately I've been sort of more into the modern day Rolexes, and I think Rolex is just killing it with their modern day releases, quite frankly. So currently I prefer modern day Rolexes, but you know, certainly I have nothing against vintage Rolexes if you know what you're getting. Vintage Rolexes also tend to be really quite expensive, and again, for what you get, you're getting a very well worn, very well used you know, watch and bracelet that you may not want to wear every day, whereas something like this, I really am gravitated towards wearing this daily. Let me go ahead and turn the lights off here, and then I'm going to shine a UV light on the markers so that you can see the lume on this as well. Totally dark. All right, it's not a totally dark room here, as I do have some sunlight on here, but if I shine that, you can kind of see the lume there. So it's really nice. They've improved that as well. It's now it now glows blue rather than green, and it's supposed to last longer. And also, interestingly, when I shine the UV light on it, take a look at the bezel. Look what happens to the bezel. It turns completely red. So that's really interesting when I do that. It kind of just shows you a little bit of an insight to the manufacturer of the bezel. What they did is they actually do one color first, and I believe then they do the other color. I think they do red first, and then they do the blue over the red, and that enables them to, you know, get both colors on there very reliably, and you don't have a line on the transition or anything like that. All right, so with the lights back on here now, let's take a closer look at the watch face and the bezel. You can kind of see there. This is just a really amazingly attractive watch any way you look at it, and something that I'm really very pleased with. So thanks for watching this video. This has been my look at the Rolex Pepsi GMT-Master 2. Just about a week ago now, they also just announced that you can get this same watch in a oyster bracelet as well. I prefer the Jubilee bracelet myself, personally. I just think it's, I don't know, a lot better, especially on this watch. But, you know, if you don't like the Jubilee bracelet, as you see it here, you can get this in the oyster bracelet. Thanks for watching, and for any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them. And I will see you in my next video. Take care, everybody.